I think there is risk, and the risk doesn't lie with El Salvador. Actually, the risk lies on Bitcoin. I think the next thing to get to safety for Bitcoin is for other nations to adopt it, like
Agreed.
see it's working, they're going to adopt it, and then we can get back to that decentralized. I don't think that is a valid argument, because if you really understand stock to flow, he's creating a valuation based on scarcity, right? It's like, and he defines scarcity as the limit of stock to how much of that is coming in. And then he can compare it to gold, silver, and whatnot. And Bitcoin has its own stock to flow. As each halving happens, it gets more and more scarce. And he can show that these networks or assets all follow a continuum that's very predictable based on how scarce they are. And so it's a supply side equation that gives you what's nice is it gives you an absolute valuation, right? It gives you absolute, like a lot of stuff doesn't. It just says we're going up or down. Like a lot of stuff I do is we're going up or down. And when you start to introduce demand side to it, it's not stock to flow. You can't say this is a broken model because it's a supply side valuation model. When they're saying, well, there's going to be tapering and whatnot, and like there's going to be less money to go into it. It's not the point of stock to flow. It's absolute scarcity and how historically we've valued things through human behavior. And if we print more money, then like that'll affect the stock to flow valuations of gold and silver and then Bitcoin. So that raises itself. I would say, like, I don't know if stock Plan B is doing that, but once you double the supply of US dollars, then you've really got to recalibrate stock to flow valuation of gold because it's just gone up and everything else goes up. But it doesn't invalidate the model. I think it's a pretty safe model in terms of what it claims to do. And it never gives you a price target that's exact because we've seen huge overshoots, but pretty much falls back onto that line. So yeah, I don't think that argument's valid from Hyobi. I haven't read the article, but if it's just they're saying there's not enough money to go into it, so it's going to not make it. Maybe they're saying that price prediction won't be hit. Maybe they're not saying that this model is broken. They might say that that we won't hit that price. But that's fine because it doesn't break
Yeah.
the model. It just means
No.
that, well, we're close enough. It swings either side and eventually it might iron out another way. It's going to be interesting because it's not all like we know how Bitcoin can move. We've got like 35 or so days to do it. Still, it's a lot. Like we're talking almost a 2x from here, just
Yeah.
under. Actually, he's on the right side of the. If he won, he'd be on the right side if you're betting on Bitcoin. Because if he wins, and then Bitcoin's at 300 grand instead of So you've got that community aspect to it. So it's. And undoubtedly, it's very hard to argue that this is going to fail in this offering for El Salvador. I think there is risk, and the risk doesn't lie with El Salvador. Actually, the risk lies on Bitcoin because if, for example, Bukele somehow does something, like he's got dictatorship level controls of that country, and then he becomes totalitarian or does like a bad kind of act for a state actor, then all other nation states can point the finger to Bitcoin. And if you think about it, Bitcoin is a bottom-up technology. And here we've got the first time as top-down is fiat, which is by decree you have to take it. And then we do all the stuff with Bitcoin that improves the welfare of that country, but then that country maybe it goes through a different political shift. And we kind of saw this with other countries. We even saw it with China to some degree, where it opened up and became much more free market, and a lot of entrepreneurs made a lot of billions building infrastructure, and then now a lot of that power is being ceded back to the state and being very centralized. So, the entrepreneur class was given freedom, and was used to build that infrastructure. And then, thank you very much, we concede power. And it's the same with Bitcoin. Let's use this. But if Bukele changes his mind and it concedes and pulls in the power and does something that's not acknowledged as good for its country, people are going to point to Bitcoin, and that's going to be really hard for Bitcoin to recover from as a, you know, reserve currency or the solution for sovereign states. So, I mean, I keep that in mind while everyone's like FOMOing over this is a great thing. I think there's risks for Bitcoin, not El Salvador. I'll be a lot more happy if Latin America takes that initiative and they all start to go on a Bitcoin standard. And now we've got a cluster of countries, and it's more decentralized in terms of nation states that are doing different experiments. And like, if a few go bad, you go, well, these ones did well and these ones didn't, and these are the reasons why. It's not because of Bitcoin. So that would be good. That's way that would be a positive end of it, right? And I think also, I mean, I'd prefer him to have another term so that this experiment can come to a fruition and we can see that experiment rather than it just get deconstructed. So that's good. And I'm also thinking how like things work in America now, which is actually bottom up, right? You've got the hodlers, then you've got like the hedge funds and family offices coming in, and then you've got Michael Saylor leading the charge with corporate treasuries, and then you've got the banks now like acknowledging the need to banking on Bitcoin, like, and then you've got now regulatory openings and acknowledgement, and at least some sort of rules being made to account for Bitcoin and so forth. And you got senators that are backing it and not, and it's all bottom up, right? It's not by decree, and it's messy, and it's like all proper democracies should be messy and chaotic because everyone gets their say. And I feel like that's almost more healthy. America is doing, I think, a pretty like it's more compatible to Bitcoin. America's the US is very decentralized with all the different states, and each one has their own policy, and I like that. It's bottom up. Like right now, El Salvador is in a fragile position for Bitcoin. If this is not successful or something screws up in El Salvador and it goes bad because of political stuff, it's going to be blamed on Bitcoin. So now that that started, I think the next thing to get to safety for Bitcoin is for other nations to adopt it. Like,
Agreed.
see it's working, they're going to adopt it, and then we can get back to that decentralized view of like, anti-fragile, and that didn't work, this did, and it's not Bitcoin's fault.